Hello and welcome, friends of the world. You're listening to KBMSFM Balanced Radio. We urge that you take notice of our public service announcement, because this program may contain some strong language, adult humor and content that younger listeners may find disturbing and frightful at times. Please remember you can email the station anytime. It's kbmsfm@hotmail.com. You can follow the station on Twitter. We are at kbmsfm. Listen to our show live Friday to Sunday from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. British Summer Time. This is because we use a free service and is very hard to acquire. A good server. You can listen via the link shown in the description box provided. You may also like to view our website. It's kbmsfmradio.tk. We also provide featured channels on our YouTube channel in the Featured tab. We hope that we report accurately and promptly. Please enjoy the show, and, most importantly, enjoy life.
The greatest form of control is when you think you are free, when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated to. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell, and you can see the bars and you can touch these bars. The other is sitting in that same prison cell, but you can't see no bars, but you think you are free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers and lecturers, all alike. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we are told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Hey everybody, this is Paul. I'm from kbmsfm@hotmail.com. You can personally email me with your requests, your feedback, your questions, anything you got on conspiracy theories, your music, anything you want. It would be Paul, kbmsfm@hotmail.co.uk. That's my personal email that starts with Paul and then it's kbmsfm@hotmail.co.uk. You can also check out the website for the station, that's kbmsfmradio.tk. That's kbmsfmradio.tk. You can also follow us on Twitter, and that's @kbmsfm. You can follow myself on Twitter. I'm at Paul Hayburn, Hayburn.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by KBMSFM. Parental guidance is advised for the following program as it may contain some bad language and some ideas that younger listeners may find disturbing.
Bill Boyles and Chelsea Fowler, welcome to the show. Now, ladies first, Chelsea, would you mind telling us, you are a survivor of WASP, aren't you?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, well, could you maybe go a bit deeper? Could you tell me and the listeners why you're here on the show?
Yes. Well, Bill and I represent a organization called the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs Survivors Network.
Uh-huh.
And we're both survivors of WASP. WASP is a conglomerate of different behavioral modification schools, a lot of which are already shut down, but some of which are still operating today. And to this day, they probably stand to be one of the most notoriously abusive schools, or, they have a pretty bad reputation, I guess you could say. Now, the school that I went to, it was pretty bad. I went to two different ones, one of which was more of like a main facility, more of a school-type facility. It was still pretty much like a prison, but at least there were, modern conveniences, whereas the boot camp that I was sent to was just absolute hell. And it was shut down for deplorable conditions. And, of course, child abuse. They held us in dog cages, and they beat us on the regular, and they starved us to the point where we were just constantly just dreaming of food and dreaming of escape. And yeah, it was pretty bad. So, I have taken my experience and tried to communicate this with parents who are currently looking into these same kinds of schools, and help them to realize that these schools aren't exactly what they represent themselves to be.
Okay, and is there more than just one of these schools or treatment centres, as they're called?
Oh yeah, in the whole troubled teen industry, there's thousands. In fact, CAFD just did a map where they mapped all of the different treatment centers, and you should see in America, I don't even know how many thousands of them there are. There's a lot.
Okay.
Now, WASP was, I think they at their heyday, they had about 26 different schools open.
Uh-huh.
But that's just one company, and in the troubled teen industry has several different companies and independent schools, and even some religious schools. So there's quite a bit.
Okay, so they're everywhere basically, and I believe they're international.
Yes, yeah. There's some in Canada. I know that WASP had a few, and still I think has one in Mexico, Costa Rica, Jamaica, Samoa, the Czech Republic, and I believe there might be a few in the UK that I've heard of, but I don't know if they're still open.
No, I'm not aware of any anyway, but I'm sure there might be in some in England. I'm not sure about Scotland, where I am at the moment, but I can look into that and see actually, because I'd like to expose every single one of them, because it totally angers me to hear about all these things. Now, I've heard and watched a movie about a guy, a young man that sadly passed away during attending one of these so-called treatment centres. I believe it was Morning Star. Some of the listeners may have already heard there was this person that had passed on due to this. It's a very sad case. It was brought to light some time ago, I believe, and this young man was at, correct me if I'm wrong, Morning Star in Utah, USA. His name was Aaron Bacon.
Yes, in fact, they made a movie about him. One of our own Survivor directors made a movie about him, and it was just so gripping, so emotional, especially for a survivor to be watching our experiences come to life on film. And I recommend anybody who's looking into this to watch that movie. It's called Aaron Bacon, and it's exactly it.
I'll put a link into the description with this the link to this movie. So we're going to hear a bit from Bill about this as well, if that's all right. Bill first, please.
I believe the company was called North Star. It was a wilderness treatment center in Utah, and the movie is very factually correct. It's based on not only court testimony, the testimony of the actual North Star employees, but Aaron Bacon actually kept a journal right up until his death that was recovered in an uncensored manner by his parents, and that was used as well to make the movie. So it's an extremely accurate movie for what it is, and I think it's incredible. I thought it was just a great movie.
I was almost in tears myself when I watched this, Bill. I just want to ask if you know anything more about the journal that you just mentioned there. Can you tell us a little more about this tragic young man's last few weeks, and about how this so-called treatment centre he was sent to, please?
He was sent there, and it's pretty typical in these wilderness programs. And I would like to say these wilderness programs are really the most dangerous, in my opinion, of all of these so-called treatment centers. Mm-hmm. That's where you see a lot of the deaths coming from. They're inherently dangerous when I protested against Aspen Education Group in October of last year. And I was talking, they run a bunch of wilderness programs, and I was talking to their director, and he said to me, he said himself, he says, when you take kids out into the wilderness, 100 miles from help, he says, yeah, bad things are going to happen, and yeah, people are going to get hurt. And I think when they admit themselves that kind of stuff is going to happen, I think that's a very, very clear sign for to stay away from those kinds of treatment centers.
Uh-huh.
The case of Aaron, he was, of course, escorted, kidnapped, and taken to this place in the, fairly typical fashion. He was not really initiated. They had a tradition or a rule, and it's emulated in a lot of these wilderness programs, that you have to cook your own food. You have to catch anything you want to eat, like lizards or scorpions or anything like that. And if you want to cook it, you have to make your own fire. They show you how to do that once or twice, but they don't give you any practice in it. It's really just until you figure it out, you can't cook your food, and until you figure out how to catch these things to eat, you just don't eat. And in his journal, it says he went quite some time without eating. If I recall correctly, his cause of death was an ulcer that was caused by his not eating, and it got infected.
And it went untreated for so long, which really speaks to the medical neglect problem in these programs as well.
Yeah, they didn't treat it, and his body went septic. And, in his journal, he talks about how he lost control of his bladder and his bowels, and he was defecating in his own pants, and, he was urinating on himself. For some reason, the staff, which, largely comprised of untrained, college.
Do you know what? Hold on a minute, please, Bill. No, sorry. I just have to point this out. In that movie, I did recognise what I believe to be medics that turned up in obviously an ambulance or something, and told them that he was all right. They had a part to play in his death as well, I'm sure.
Absolutely, and that's such a great point. That happened to me, and I know it happened to Chelsea too. The problem with these treatment centers is that the kids go in and they have this label on them that they're drug addicts, or although I had never done drugs before I went to one of these places, that they're manipulators and they're liars and they're thieves. And what it does is it creates an atmosphere where the staff is set against the students. It's an us versus them mentality right off the bat. Instead of the staff being partners, they're adversaries. And so, the students are not believed when they make medical complaints.
Uh-huh.
They're not believed when they tell their parents about horrific conditions or abuse going on at the school.
Yeah.
Because they have this label put on them that they're troublemakers or whatever. And that's what happened to Aaron Bacon. And so they thought that he was faking it to get more attention and all of that. And they made him carry an 80-pound backpack, and they made him lead a forced march, but they did not tell him. First of all, he had no experience in the wilderness. He had only been there a short time, so he really had no experience in how to do a forced march, how to pace himself, how to take breaks and all that. But they made him lead a forced march, and they didn't even tell him how long the march was going to be for. They just told him, start marching that direction and go.
That sickened me, that movie.
How could he pace himself?
Yeah, I know. He couldn't pace himself. I mean, he was such a young lad as well. Probably, I mean, it was mentioned that, yeah, I heard through somewhere that, yeah, okay, he smoked a bit of marijuana, he had a dabble in the drink, he done all the young guy sort of thing. So, yeah, he's probably hanging around out in his city or his town, and he's just kicking back with his mates. He's not really thinking about having to survive in the woods or in the wilderness, as you put it. Also, you mentioned about the kidnappings there, and I hear that there was cases of kidnappings. I did see that in the movie. Obviously, the kidnappings were going on, but injuries, and in some extreme cases, even deaths. Now, before we go any further, we know that at least one case being Arns, but are all youngsters treated like this?
Oh, yeah. There's a whole list of kids who have died in residential treatment centers, and I will get that link to you so you can provide it to your viewers. A lot of kids have died during restraint, and then there's also quite a few who have died because of medical neglect. We had one recently at the Leak and Watts Center, which I believe is a state-run center. So, it just goes to show that these policies that all of these treatment centers are, not all of them, but a lot of these tough love treatment centers are using these restraints for punishment and the seclusion and things like that. They're really dangerous, and they're causing injury, they're causing death, they're causing, depression, of course, PTSD. I know a lot of survivors who have complex PTSD. And, there's been quite a few over even just the last few years that I could mention. One of which was Martin Lee Anderson. This was in a program in Florida, also a state-run program, if I'm remembering correctly. He was suffocated during restraint, but also they put a rag with chloroform on it, or Bill, can you correct me on that? Was it chloroform?
I can't remember exactly. Martin Lee Anderson was a case here in Florida. The Florida most sheriff's departments, which is done by county here, run a boot camp for troubled youth. I know growing up, the one for my county was just right around the corner from my parents' house. That's actually where I thought they were taking me when I went to the program. And he was having trouble running, I believe, and then the staff, there's actually video of the staff just taking him down. I mean, they really beat up on him. There must have been 5 or 6 staff members around this poor kid. I think that he was 12 or 13.
There's a video of this on YouTube.
Yeah,
yeah.
If you want to send me these links, I can get them up into the description box below for our listeners and viewers. Please, Bill, you two are a survivor of the WASP incorporation. Is it right? It's incorporation.
I am a survivor. It's Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs. When I was there, it was actually WASP with an S on the end. Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs in Schools. You still see it referred to like that sometimes. I went to 3 WASP programs. I went to the Brightway Adolescent Hospital, and then I went to Paradise Cove in Western Samoa, and then I went to, like Chelsea, I went to Casa by the Sea in Ensenada, Mexico.
In Mexico, yeah? Out of the United States.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble understanding you from the connection. The 2 main programs I went to, Casa and Paradise Cove, were both outside of the United States.
Okay, so now can you give us a little insight on how you come about, what your story is, from the time that you were maybe from the time you were actually maybe a month before you went here, as it happened when you got taken there, and what you endured during and after, please.
Excuse me. I'd be happy to share that, and I'll share something with your listeners here. I don't talk about too much out in public, but I am bipolar, and I think that they say it sets in during adolescence, and I think it really did set in for me about 12 or 13. Things really started to change for me, and I had also suffered. My grandfather had killed himself, who I was very close to. And I had switched schools, and so I was just kind of drifting. Like I said, I didn't do drugs. I think I stole a wine cooler from my parents a couple of times. I'd never been drunk or anything like that. But we had started to fight more and more. I think I just had a bad case of the adolescent angst, and I think that mixed with the bipolar, and we were just fighting a lot. I did not like the school that I was going to. I wanted to go to a more challenging private school. My parents refused to send me to, and we were fighting about that, so I quit going to school, and I think that was the catalyst for me getting sent, was refusal to go to school. And so, we fought, and then one morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 huge guys just burst into my room and woke me up, and they said, son, you're coming with us, and we can do it the easy way or the hard way. And they yoked me out of bed, and they said, we're taking you to school, and they handcuffed me, and they handcuffed me, and they dragged me out the house, right in front of my parents. My mom was standing there crying, my dad was standing there, my brother was watching me, and they threw me in the back of a car, and long story short, I ended up in Utah later that night at Brightway Adolescent Hospital, which was WASP's at the time. It was WASP's kind of clearinghouse. Most kids went there before they went to their main program and spent between a week and a month being quote unquote evaluated. WASP pretended that they did not own the facility. They pretended it was an independent facility that provided independent recommendations or referrals. Of course, that wasn't the case, and I think when they looked at Utah investigators finally looked at Brightway and closed it down, I think that they had looked at something like 199 or 200 cases, and WASP programs have been referred in 197 of them, I think, something along those lines. So my parents thought they were getting an independent assessment of me, but of course I got sent to Samoa, Paradise Cove, and I spent 22 months in Paradise Cove, from 14 to 16. It was very brutal there. I really think, and I don't mean to diss anybody else, I have love for all survivors, and I feel everybody's pain, but I've been doing this for 7 years, and I don't think I've ever heard of a facility with the amount of just institutionalized abuse to the
pure
level
evil
of Paradise Cove. There was beatings constantly. There was stabbings constantly. The isolation stalls were always full. Things were very, very primitive there. We lived in huts. They didn't have windows even. They were just open air.
Yeah.
I was electrocuted there and broke my back.
Jesus.
I was beat on numerous occasions. We didn't even have hot water. At times, we didn't even have running water. I caught scabies there, which is, it's a disease.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's skin that, they ran rampant there. I remember one night waking up covered in cockroaches, like my whole face and everything. I remember waking up one night and watching a kid get stabbed like 27 times with these big nails, like these big spikes that other 2 kids had found somewhere. I mean, it was very Lord of the Flies there. Very, very literally, much like Lord of the Flies.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, that does definitely sound like that, and that's pure evil, what I've just heard in my ear there. Now, what was done to... I mean, did you endure the whole time? I call it a sentence because that's what it sounds like. Did you endure the whole time, or were you saved from there by someone or something?
No, I spent 22 months in Paradise Cove. I eventually moved up in the levels, and was sent to Casa by the Sea in Mexico after 22 months, as part of what they call the transition program. You've been away from your family for so long that they're complete strangers at this point. And, somehow, living in Mexico was going to help me reacquaint myself with my parents that lived in Florida. That's only like 4,000 miles. I went there and spent another 8 months there before I finally graduated the program. I did the whole hog. From soup to nuts. I had to graduate the program. I wasn't ever polled, or I didn't turn 18.
Bloody hell.
So, and I'll send you a picture. I'll send you a picture. Maybe you can put it up of myself. Chelsea knows what picture I'm talking about. It was taken. It was taken by my parents during the time that I was transferring from Paradise Cove to Mexico. It was taken in the Las Vegas airport. And, I'll just say, I mean, I look like a Holocaust survivor. I'm so skinny. I'm yellow from malnutrition. I got, jaundice and 2 black eyes in the picture from a goodbye beating that I got from the staff. They rubbed my face in the sand while they were at it, and I caught each eye in both of my eyes. I don't know how my parents took that picture and then sent me for 8 more months.
That's ridiculous, yeah. I mean, sorry, no dissing your mum and dad, but, that's not right. I mean, can I just... That's pure evil in my eyes. That photo you're talking about, Bill, I'm going to put that on as the major image of the show. That is just going to play throughout, and so people see this all the way through that show. Now, can I just ask you, Chelsea, was this the same for you too, or was it more lenient because you were a girl?
Well, Samoa was definitely different than CASA in the way that Samoa had, it was a long-term program, but it definitely had more extreme conditions, and, nobody got stabbed at CASA, so for the most part, like I said, that it was more of a facility with, modern conveniences. At least in the latter years of my time there, I was there for 24 months. The whole time I was a level 1, 0 points, and I eventually got pulled. So there's a difference in our programs, because he was an upper level. He got to kind of move up and have more privileges, like wearing shoes and being able to, walk where he wanted to walk and, do what he wanted to do. Whereas I was pretty much a what you would consider a maximum security prisoner my whole time, the whole 2 years I was there. I didn't speak to my mother. I didn't speak to any of my family unless it was on
supervised grounds.
I had one parent-child seminar that we went to, and that was the first time I'd seen them in, I think it was a year and a half. And like I said, I went to 2 different programs, so they're very apples and oranges. The facility at Casa by the Sea wasn't as bad as the facility of High Impact. But, the psychological abuse was still there. Definitely, considering the program, the way the program is run, structure of the program, the rules of the program, the way that the upper levels are like bullies, and they're trying to, constantly give you these consequences for anything and everything you do. Literally like humming to yourself or accidentally saying a quarter of a word without first raising your hand and waiting for somebody to call on you, and or having a pen in your hair when you walk into a bathroom, and just silly stuff, or looking out a blind or looking out the window, stupid stuff. And of course that kept me in worksheets all the time. Worksheets is like a detention kind of, where you're just staring at a wall and you're listening to these tapes that have tests, and you take the tests on the tapes, and you're not allowed to do school when you're in this worksheets place. So throughout my whole 2 years there, I didn't have any schooling at all. I didn't have any education, because I was constantly in this worksheets place.
Yeah. Now,
my mom's paying, $4,000 a year, and I'm not getting an education. I'm just sitting and staring at a wall every day.
She's getting conned. She's getting conned. Both parents are getting conned. I read that on one of the websites you supplied me with. Now, that shocked me. That what is the government doing about all of this? I mean, are they actively doing anything about this?
I wouldn't say actively. I think that there's a lot of advocates out there that are pushing for policies like. You should probably ask Bill about this. He and I were both involved with a organization called CAFD, the Community Alliance for the Ethical Treatment of Youth, and they've been pushing for regulation, federal regulation of these schools, just to be able to provide adequate human rights for these kids. And the government is not listening to us. They won't pass these policies, or they haven't yet. Okay. And they say it's a state's issue. Well, and the states will pretty much let these programs do whatever they want and go unlicensed. And, as long as the parents are continuing to pay for it, they can do whatever they want.
Let's hear a bit from you, Bill, about this.
Well, the original bill to regulate these places is called the Stop Residential Abuse or Stop Child Abuse and Residential Treatment Programs, and it was originally proposed under H.R. 911 by Congressman George Miller from California. He's a Democrat, and it was allowed to expire in committee. It was reintroduced again and expired again, and it has now been reintroduced, and it's under 3126, SR 3126. The problem is that, I hate to get political here, but the Republican Party keeps blocking it and saying that it's a states' rights issue. Now, in my personal opinion, the Interstate Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution gives these programs, or gives the federal government, already has regulatory oversight over these programs if they choose to exercise it, because the kids are being transported across state lines by, just like Chelsea was, and at times international boundaries. These programs are taking money over state lines, and they are treating kids from states that they're not located in. Primarily, they're mostly located at this point in Utah. That's where a lot of the programs in the United States are, although they're in all 50 states, I believe. They're taking kids that are not located in their states. So I really feel like it's not a state issue. The government has the power to regulate this stuff. And, while I'm not the hugest fan of regulation.
What are they playing at? I mean, they should be doing like spot checks on these places, as they're apparently places of safety, yet no one is watching them really.
Absolutely. Chelsea and I actually just tried to get a social worker out to in Iowa, and she told us, that social worker told us, that she could not go into the program and do a check without a verified account of abuse. And I asked if I could have the licensing body do a check, and was told that because the program wasn't licensed, no licensing body had any authority over it.
So because they are running...
the ironic part was...
So because they're running private corporations and unregulated corporations, these people who run these facilities are running wild, acting like nothing short of demonic bullies, and in most cases murderers.
I agree. This is just a really bad case. I think capitalism works a lot, but this is a really bad case of capitalism gone awry. I don't think that healthcare and its related fields is really where laissez-faire and capitalism serve us best. And, if the federal government is going to regulate things like gas mileage in cars, then it should definitely be regulating children. The treatment of children, in my opinion, and this sounds trite, but children are our country's, our world's most important natural resource that we have. And we're treating children worse than we treat oil or forests in Brazil, the rainforest in Brazil, or anything else. And that's going to have devastating consequences.
So
for the world as this goes on.
That's of course, Bill. I mean,
in these treatment centers, these kids are treated worse than prisoners and murderers in high security prisons. I mean, prisoners in prisons get the right to use the phone. Prisoners in prisons get the right to, go to the bathroom when they need to. They get the right to speak. They get the right to, the right to a lawyer. They can get medical assistance at any time.
Yeah.
These are things that we are asking the government to at least provide for these kids, because they're kids, not criminals, kids. And they're being sent to these private prisons by their parents. It's not like they're terrible kids, they're criminals, they're getting court ordered, and they deserve to be abused. These are usually pretty good kids. Maybe they've got a couple issues, be it, a mental disorder or a behavioral issue, or maybe they just have a really crappy home life and they're not getting along with their parents, and their parents say, I've got $6,000 to spend in a month. Why not just send my kid off and let somebody else deal with them, because I don't feel like it. Yeah. And that's why these programs exist, because there's parents out there that are not willing to look at these programs and see what they really are. They are really private prisons. That's all they are.
That is exactly what that sounds like.
Private prisons are not regulated by the government means that they can get away with anything that they see fit. They can discipline them in any way that they believe is necessary. And that usually means that these kids are getting abused. And I'm not talking once in a while there's an incident. It's systematic. They're being abused every day. They're miserable because they're living in hell.
This is physical and mental abuse.
And the government's not doing anything about it because nobody even knows.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard claims lately. Yeah. I've heard them lately about... I'm hearing that Mitt Romney has a special interest in these treatment centres. What's his involvement in all this?
Well, we just did an article about that on WASPsurvivors.com. Basically, there's a few connections he has. One of which was in his the last time that he ran for president. He ran with his financial co-chair was Robert Litchfield, and Robert Litchfield is the owner of WASP, the school that Bill and I went to. Mm-hmm. And basically, because there's a class action lawsuit against WASP, I believe it was started in 2006, and because of that, and I believe some of the bad press that was surrounding that, there's something like 300 people were involved in this lawsuit, all talking about torture and abuse and neglect, medical neglect, maltreatment, sexual abuse, and that obviously looked pretty bad on Mitt Romney. So he asked Robert Litchfield to step down, or I believe what was said is this, and I can quote. Governor Romney has asked Mr. Litchfield to step down and not be involved in any more fundraising until the lawsuit is resolved in the positive, which we are confident will happen. This is via Ken K. I'm sorry, Ken K, which is the president of WASP. So that was in 2007 before he stepped down, and now 2012 he's back, and he's got Mel Sembler, which Mel Sembler was the founder of Straight Incorporated. Have you heard about Straight?
I've not heard about it myself.
Well, Straight is basically like the godfather of all these programs. It started in the, I want to say the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And it's since then been shut down, but there's been so many spin-offs from these programs that if you lead down what we call the WASP tree, which is like the history of all these programs, basically, Straight Inc. is the godfather of WASP. They're one and the same family, you know?
Okay.
So he's got Mel Stumbler, and he's also got a couple more people who have just been involved with the industry. One was Paul Bebu, I believe his name was. The guy that got into some trouble for threatening to have his gay lover deported if he told about him being gay. He used to work at a school called the DeSisto School. I believe I'm pronouncing that right.
Okay.
He was the director.
This is crazy. I mean,
there's just one more that I'd like to mention. His wife, Ann Romney, she made a comment on her campaign trail with Mitt Romney, saying that at-risk youth has been a concern of mine and a love of mine for a lot of years. And she says that is going to be the work that she's going to take on as First Lady. So basically, she's also supporting these schools. And we have led to Bain Capital is Mitt Romney's former company, yet he still makes a lot of money from it. Like he gets a lot of money from Bain Capital every month. They own Aspen Education Group. And Aspen Education is another one of those WASP-like conglomerates, where they have a bunch of different schools. So, I mean, he's very connected to this. Very connected.
Okay, so
and he's making money. Every time a kid suffers in these programs, he's profiting from it.
So let me get this straight. I mean, not only are these centres privately owned and run, but politicians are in on this act too. So what the hell have these kids got to help save them apart from the likes of yourselves?
I don't know. That's the problem. There really isn't much.
Yeah, Bill?
I can actually address that. There is a lot of, positivity right now. Like Chelsea said, she works with the CAPITY, the Community Alliance for the Ethical Treatment of Youth. I am the director of chapter development and outreach for CAPITY. And, we are a advocacy group, a youth rights and human rights advocacy group that fights for the rights of kids that are in placement or at the risk of placement. And, the nice thing is, like on our board of directors right now, quite a few of our board members aren't survivors. They are concerned social workers, psychiatrists. We work with another organization called A-Start, and, they are a group of mental health professionals largely, not survivors, that are interested and concerned about this issue. And I think that, or people like yourself, Paul, who don't have a dog in this hunt, as it were, but just think that the abuse of children is despicable.
It's disgusting.
And, so there has been kind of a groundswell of concerned citizens, as I like to call them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Aren't directly, who aren't directly involved, and that's very encouraging to me, because when I started, doing advocacy back in about 2006, there wasn't a lot of interest outside of people who were directly survivors of these schools. And, we're really starting to get the message out. And I appreciate people like you who do these kinds of things for us.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I'll try my best to do anything I can to help. I'm 110% in this with you guys. But what I'd like to say is, if this message gets out, then there's going to be a whole load more people, and I'm positive this message will get out, guys. And so, like, I'd like to say something directly to the parents. I mean, for parents of the children whom are attending or about to attend these wickedly run, privately run treatment centres, as they're so called, then surely we're to investigate. You've got to investigate first. Because thousands of lives could be saved, and they would see the truth behind the lies, and then expose these terrible institutions for what they really were. So I personally want to address the parents about this. I'm going to let you guys speak first, and then I'm going to say my piece.
Well, what I would just want to say to the parents
okay, you want to go first, Kelsey?
we're sharing our stories, and these things are... Yes. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you, yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Let's start.
Just carry on where you're going to start from, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, what I'd just like to say to these parents is this. We're sharing our stories of the past because it's a really good example of what's still going on. There's a lot of programs that are still open that are claiming not to be WASP, but they are WASP. They're still owned by WASP. They still have the WASP system. And then there's other programs that are more like spin-offs of WASP, which are employing the same system, but not necessarily owned by the same people. And it's just like, it never ends. They're never really, no matter how many we can get shut down, it's never going to be the end of these kinds of schools unless the parents are willing to realize, well, really what it's going to take is public knowledge of what these places are really like and being able to see the red flags. There's a lot of red flags. There's a lot of things that if you are in knowledge of what human rights, what rights people deserve, these programs would just would seem unfair. They would seem unethical. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take parents saying, okay, I'm paying $6,000 a month for my child to get an education and to, be taken away from the influence of their life. But I still want my kid to be safe. They don't need to be tortured because of it. No parent should want that for their child. So my advice is just this, do your research. If you're finding survivors coming forward and saying, I was abused at this place, if you're finding out that they are restricting your communication, that the child is not allowed to call 911 if they feel they're abused, if they're telling you that your child is going to manipulate you, they're going to say that this place is horrible, they're going to say that they're being abused, but don't believe them. That is their whole marketing scheme. They're doing that in order to brainwash you and brainwash your child. Intimidate your child. Your child's living in fear. That's why they don't tell you about this place, because they know the first time that they say, Mom, I want to come home, they're going to get tackled to the ground and have their limbs pulled out of their sockets and thrown in seclusion for, however many days. Or
okay, so Bill,
have to carry a cart around a track for 6 hours a day. These places are abusing these kids and calling it treatment. It's not treatment. It's not therapy. It's an experimental, psychological...
It's a Nazi camp, that's what I'm saying.
So, I would just encourage parents to look into it, and that's all I can say. They can come to my website, even though it's WASP, and there's other programs out there that are not WASP. I still have a red flags list, which would be questions that you should ask any program about their policies. Any program, if they have these policies, do not enroll your child. And that can be found at waspsurvivors.com/red flags. So
Okay. Okay, thank you,
That's
Chelsea.
all I can recommend.
Okay, Bill, this your turn.
All right. I'd like to address parents and say, when my parents sent me back in 1997, there was not really an internet the way there is now. There was not advocacy groups like Chelsea and I are involved with. There are so many resources for parents now to find out the truth, to do research. Facebook is a great tool. Search for groups that are alumni, survivors, whatever, of the treatment center that you're looking at. Almost every treatment center has one. Chelsea and I make great use of these Facebook groups for doing research. Join the group and ask, hey, what was it really like there? And, get some real uncensored information. Capity and WASP survivors, but also Capity and A-Start all have lists of red flags on their websites for you to look at. Those could be astartforteens.org and capity.org. Also, if you'd like, if you have questions, if you have a team that's struggling, you can contact Capity or A-Start, and we'll be happy to do what we can to give you some advice and maybe link you up with treatment options in your area. And that's what we really want to focus on. Sending your kids away is proven scientifically to be harmful. It doesn't serve any purpose. You need to look for resources in your own area, in your hometown. If there's not something in your hometown, maybe you live in a small area, the nearest city or the nearest county where you can get some services, check through the school board, wraparound services, those kinds of things. We'll be happy to do some research for you and help you identify resources in your area that are alternatives to these tough love kinds of places. That we want to look for places that are evidence-based, that the treatment
Real
there
treatment.
has been signed. I'm sorry, Chelsea?
Another thing is that it should really be based on the individual issues of the child, because these programs, these tough love programs, they give you a one-size-fits-all program. They say we can cure ADD, we can cure OCD, we can cure behavioral problems, and those drug problems. Those don't all have the same treatment plan in real therapy and real treatment. What it's going to take is you realizing issues your child has, taking them to a professional psychologist, and having them help you to find the right kind of treatment. You can't just throw your kid into a program and expect all of their issues are going to change or are going to be magically, cured, because that's impossible. It's impossible to send a kid with a mental disorder into a tough love program and expect them to be cured.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen. It's
bipolar can't be cured. OCD can't be cured. Addiction cannot be cured. They can be treated successfully, but they can't be cured. Any place that's claiming to cure ADD or ADHD or any of these other things, they can't cure. Those are disorders. They're not like a sickness where you can give some antibiotics and it goes away. That's a battle that unfortunately your child's just going to have to fight for the rest of their life, and hopefully you can find some effective treatment for that, but they can't be cured. But I encourage parents to look in their own area for resources. Again, Capity and A-Start, we're happy to help. There are lots of other organizations that are happy to help. Your local school board is a great place to look for resources. You can check with your state's protection and advocacy organization. They might have some suggestions for you as well.
Well, here's my piece.
And so I would just say, do your research.
Sorry.
My dad sent me away. And he spent over $120,000 on this program. The man wouldn't spend $200 on an iPod without researching it for months. And I just don't, I don't understand that mentality. You're making a huge investment. Do your research. Show up unannounced at the program that you're looking at, the treatment center that you're looking at. Also, treatment should be a last resort. Look for other alternatives. Try everything because no matter what, even the quote unquote best places, even the places that use evidence-based treatment, even the places that aren't abusive, there is a stigma attached to going to one of these places, and there is a trauma. There's going to be trauma from sending your kid to one of these places. And so you should avoid that if at all possible. And that's a decision that you really need to be making with the help of a mental health professional team, I would say. It needs to be considered, very carefully.
Of course.
The other thing that I would like to say to parents out there is that, you need to remember how you felt and what you were like when you were a teenager. It's easy for us to grow up and forget what it feels like to be 13. You know what? Teenage angst happens, and most teens grow out of what they do in their teens. I did, and most of the people I know that, from my teens grew out of those stupid behaviors too. But, most parents grow out of that stuff too. And you know what? You made those mistakes when you were a kid, and somehow you turned out all right. So you need to have faith that your kid will turn out all right too. But you know what? Defiance is not a treatable condition.
That is some great words from you too.
It's not a disease. It's not an illness. It's just a fact of teenage life. And, trying to treat it or make it go away somehow is just going to exacerbate the problem. And that's all that I have to say to parents right there.
Okay, that's great, Bill. Thanks very much for that.
Bill, something that I think we forgot to mention here is this. We're talking about treatment, and you're talking about treatment in the way of, therapy and having somebody really one-on-one pay attention to you and your individual needs, things like that. That's not what these kids are getting in these programs. What they call therapy is not therapy. What they call treatment is not real treatment. Therapy in a program for, let's say, a girl who was raped is going to be reenacting that rape and telling that girl that she deserved to be raped because of the low-cut shirt she was wearing and telling her she needs to take responsibility for her rape, and that, there's no responsibility on the person that raped her, only on her for putting herself in that position. It's like a complete perversion of therapy. It's the opposite of therapy. It's traumatic. It's re-traumatizing. And what you're expecting to get when you're paying that much money for a treatment plan is that they're actually going to be able to work on their issues and get one-on-one treatment. And that is not what you get at these programs. It is the exact opposite of treatment. And that's why a lot of us have PTSD or complex PTSD, because we're just, haunted by these memories and these, like, the program itself gives you issues. If you didn't already have issues, you're going to have issues when you get out.
Of course, yeah.
That's another thing that parents need to consider, is that these programs are using these marketing techniques. They're saying things like program, treatment, therapy, even restraint. Restraint, you would think, is just holding someone down when they're going out of control. But in a program, restraint is used as a punishment. It's literally a submission hold, a pain, inflicting pain for not, following the rules, or just not doing what they tell you to do, or, they can find any real reason to restrain a person. It's not because that person is out of control. So what needs to happen is these parents need to realize what these words that they're using and expecting you to kind of put two and two together because you've seen it in other kinds of programs, or, you think therapy is you and a psychologist. It's not like that in the program. It's a completely different thing. And that's why it needs definition. That's why we need people to be speaking out, survivors speaking out and saying what really happens in these programs, what's really going on, because it's so opposite of what they are marketing themselves as, and what they're expecting you to assume is going on in that program. The reality is just unbelievable. Most people don't even believe that these places exist, because you tell them what really happened in these places, they're like, oh my God, no way. Because it is unbelievable that these people could be so cruel and evil to children. But it happens. It happens every day, and there's thousands of these places in the U.S. Thousands of kids every day
I've
that are
seen
suffering
that.
and miserable.
No, I've seen that, and I'd like to say something about them, about these parents that might be thinking about sending their kids to these places. Now, I mean, sending their sons or daughters to these places. I mean, say stop, look, and listen to yourself, because you got to stop. Think about what you're doing. You got to look, see what it's like, look at it inside and out. See what the staff members are like. You got to listen to people that are telling you things, just like these guys on the other end of the call here. You parents out there have got to stop, look, and listen. I mean, wake up to the sad state of affairs, people. See the parents that already have kids in these centres. They already need to go to these centres unannounced if possible, and ask to see their child. If denied, then state basically, I mean, I'm quoting this from one of you guys' blog, state that you're bankrupt and can't afford the payments, and see how fast your kid comes back to you. Is that, I mean, this is...
It's all about the money. All about the money. That's all they care about. They don't care about your kid.
Mm-hmm.
They care about how much money they can get from you. And that's why their whole program is designed like that. So that they can make you think that your kid has changed, so that they can keep cashing your check.
Yeah, I mean, please, like, parents, either buck up your ideas as a parent, deal with it, because, I mean, I'm finding it tough at the moment. I've got 2 young kids myself, but you know what? I grew up in care. I didn't experience anything like you guys did, but, I mean, I grew up in social services. I spent 8 years in there. But I always swore to myself that I'd never let it happen to my kids. I'd never let anything like that happen to my kids. But the things that you guys have went through are just deeply sickening to me. And please, I mean, parents out there, either buck your ideas up as a parent and protect them instead of, like, opting out, and seek help from maybe a local police instead. Maybe set them up with a prison visit, or to spend a few nights in a cell. This might cost you money to do this. I don't know how it works over in the States, but we can do it here. This may cost money, but, you know, this money will be better spent than actually like paying for your kid to be tortured in a way. I mean, it would be more effective than these terrible centres that all over the States. However, they are not confined to the States. They're international. So, like, it can happen to anybody. It can happen to anyone around this globe. I mean, none more so than China, if you think about it. It's a communist state. They're bound to have some, I mean, media blackouts all the time over there. But, you know, these centres are just diabolical. Now, parents of the world, if you can't handle your child's behaviour, then seek advice from real parents on a parents forum on the net. Not just your own country, but the globe. Is more times than none you'll meet someone somewhere else with a solution that is right for you. Maybe not in your country, but maybe in another country, and they have a solution that works for you. But having another group of people attacking and taking your child into an abusive environment is not the right thing to do. It's you got to sit down and you got to talk with them. You got to talk with that child, and if that don't work, then maybe it's time to let them learn from their own mistakes. I mean, you know, yeah, okay, they might be a bit young to do that, but I'm talking like if they're 15, 16, let them make their mistakes, let them get lifted from the police. It's a lot better in prison than it is in these environments. That's what I'm saying, and this is really getting to me. So, like, I'm just going to try and wrap this call up, guys. I mean, I'm getting a bit angry about it. Oh, sorry.
Believe me, we're quite angry too. And that's the thing. You know, we're really happy to see that there's other people out there that are realizing these things. We talked to a mother a couple weeks ago who was scared that her child was going to be court order to one of these places. She went and she toured the place. This is Diamond Ranch Academy. And she just got the sickest feeling about what was really going on at this place. And I applaud her because she did her research. She found survivors of Diamond Ranch Academy. She found the truth. She went to the place. She asked the right questions, and for some reason they were taken aback by all the questions that she was asking. These are normal questions like, do you have medical staff on campus? You know, is she licensed to be giving out these medications? Things like that. And I applaud any parent who has the good sense to ask those questions and to to go out and reach out to survivors and ask them what this program was really like, because that's when you're going to find the truth. You're not going to find the truth asking the director of these programs, because they're going to cover it up.
Yeah. And
they're going to tell you what you want to hear in order to get you to sign that contract. The contract itself is scary. You know, they make you sign over 51% of your parental rights, which means that they can beat your kid. They can punish them any way they want. But the way that these programs are treating these kids, if these parents were treating these kids the same way at home, they would get CPS called on them in a minute, and they would be in jail. But for some reason, they can pay somebody else to do it.
I mean, it's not.
That doesn't really make sense.
That's not right. No, it doesn't make sense at all. I remember one time when I was in care, I must have been, 14, 15. I was getting a bit out of hand. I was getting a bit nippy. You know, I was shouting at staff. I was actually hitting staff. This Australian dude, he was a big guy. He must have played Aussie rules or something. Like, he was a big dude. He had some muscle on him. And this guy was 6 foot. Now, I'm only 5.5 foot, guys, you know. This guy was 6.5 foot. And he just wrapped his arm round my neck, lifted me up, and I wasn't even touching the floor. Now, that's nothing compared to what you guys went through there. And, you know, but I can just imagine how bad it could be if I was suffering that every moment of the day. You know, and it just sickens me, this whole charade, everything that's going on over that way. And I really do want to get this message out. And if there's parents listening that are thinking or maybe researching at the moment about putting their kids in these places, don't bloody do it. You know, just don't. Just research other things like these guys have said. Now,
it takes is just knowing what to look for. You know, look into the troubled teen industry, Google the name of the school, maybe Google abuse, go to the Facebook groups of those schools. That's usually where the survivors are.
Listen, every single link is going to be in that description box below, so please, parents, anyone that's interested in finding out more about this, the links are in the description box. Click them, they'll take you to a separate page. You can keep your bloody YouTube page open if you need to be. Just click them, research, find out more. If you know anybody in your family, your friends, anything at school, any at university, I don't care where you are. Just figure it out, research it, and pass the bloody message on about this. This is absolutely diabolical that us on YouTube and, you know, on free radio and online, you know, it's us that's reporting this. This should be mainstream media reporting this. And if there's anybody in mainstream media, get this fucking on the airwaves.
Bill and I both were on the Geraldo show. Was that 2006 or 2007? And they gave us about 30 seconds to speak.
30 seconds.
And then they went to the Anna Nicole Smith story.
Okay, Bill, you had something to say there, buddy.
It feels like they just don't care.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment to say, you know, there may be survivors listening to this that have never told their story. I know I took a very long time to open up to my friends about what had happened to me. You know, obviously I got out in 2000 and, you know, didn't really start talking at all about what was going on to my parents or anybody for years, and didn't get into advocacy for 6 years. You know, we are a very open and welcoming group of survivors. You know, come see us at the Capitalism Facebook page. come see us at WASP Survivors. Find a group, join it. Survivors are very welcoming to other survivors. They're very nice, and you'll have somebody that you can talk to who really believes you and understands what you're talking about when you talk about what you went through. You tell me that you got beat, I believe it. You tell me you got starved, I believe it. I've been there, and I can talk to you, and I'll be there to talk to you at 3 o'clock in the morning when you can't sleep because you're having those flashback nightmares again. Because I've been there too. And Chelsea and I do that for each other, and we all have friends that we do that for. And
we're a
my
really
survivor
tight-knit community, the survivor community.
Yeah.
It's really great to be part of this. As bad as it is in the way that we met, I'm really glad that we did meet, because I've met some of the most amazing people just connecting with survivors, and not just WASP survivors, like survivors from all these different kinds of programs.
Come tell us your stories. Come tell us your stories. We want to hear them. We want to be there. We'd love to have you. Basically, if you're a survivor and you've been suffering in silence, don't do it anymore. It's horrible. You got to get the poison out. You got to talk about what happened to you. That's the only way to heal. And I personally will be happy to talk to you. Maybe Paul can put a link to my email or something.
I can put every link that has ever been put out, guys. I will put that in the description box, so any survivors, any parents, anyone that wishes to research this anymore, there'll be every single link mentioned in this show in the description box. Nothing less. Nothing less.
I will talk to anybody at all, parents, survivors, interested third parties, government officials, social workers, police. I don't care who you are. If you want to talk about the troubled teen industry, if you want to tell me your stories, if you want to ask me questions, if you need me to do some research, that is my job, and I am happy to do it, and frankly, I'm damn good at it. So contact me, let me know, speak your piece, and I'd love to hear from you. I am dedicated to healing of survivors and the ending of the abusive practices of these places, and anything I can do to advance that, I am happy to do. So please come contact me and let me know.
That is going to be excellent. I'd just like to say something as well. Thanks, guys, for your time. I'm going to have to wrap it up due to the editing. This is an hour and 14 minutes so far, but I'm going to just add something at the end here. We have a website, kbmsfm. So www.kbmsfm. So I'll just put it in the bloody link. And you guys, I'll send you the link straight away tonight so you can have a look. I've put them pictures you sent me, Chelsea, up on the website. I don't know if you guys be alright getting into it and that. If you have any problems, just Skype me. But the pictures are up on the website. That'll be in the links too. We are gonna just have to wrap this up.